And welcome everyone to another episode of DeFi Truth. My name is Conrad Zen. I'm your host, former Bitcoin Foundation member, and now evangelist for Pulse Zen. For those of you watching in the United States, happy holidays. For those of you in the rest of the world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and a special warm welcome to my replay viewers. So in this episode, I'm going to be talking about Fibonacci, the golden ratio, and how it is absolutely essential for Pulse Zen. I'm going to be talking about Lamborghinis. And of course, I'll be mentioning the opportunity that is Pulse Zen. So stick around. Very exciting episode. And as always, we kick off with a wee dram of some Scotch whiskey. Now, today I'm very excited to be able to bring to you this magnificent 21-year-old whiskey, single malt, poured over a single cube of very cold ice. And today I'm extremely excited because I'm going to be drinking this little number right here. And it is the Glenfiddich 21 Grand Reserve. It's a blend of just a single malt. The most amazing thing about this though is it's finished in rum casks, and it gives it those extra notes of ginger, sultry fig and lime. So all I can say to that is Slanjivar. Very, very smooth indeed. So I believe the most expensive rum that's ever been sold in the world is a Jamaican rum by Ray and Nephew. This is a 40-year-old rum, and it is a staggering $54,000 per bottle. So how on earth is it this price? Well, of course, it's value consensus. It has an intrinsic value to everybody in society who agrees that this rum is worth $54,000. And so we have the same in cryptocurrency. A cryptocurrency asset has an intrinsic value, in part because of the shared commonality, a social consensus of value. Crypto has an intrinsic value by virtue of the code. It has an intrinsic value by the functions that it actually achieves in its programmable money state. Of course, with PZEN, we have the tangible proof of its worth through the pay it forward code, which simply deducts a 2% fee for every transaction, be it a buy, a sell, or a transfer to a wallet. Now, in the headline, I've said, what is the connection with Fibonacci? And I think this will surprise you. So get ready to take some notes. Slanjivar. If I head over to the slide deck, you can see that what we have here is the normal Fibonacci retracement graph that all of you will recognize if you've ever tried to delve into technical analysis. The golden ratios purportedly invented by Fibonacci and then transposed into events on buying and selling cryptocurrencies, foreign exchanges, in fact, you name it. These golden ratios play a huge part in what we know as finance today. But what isn't well known is the fact that he didn't invent it. These things were known by mathematicians throughout Asia. And in fact, the Arabic numeral system was far superior. And the notion of having a zero in a numerical value system was known as far back as the Babylonians. And it was discovered simultaneously by several different cultures, the Mayans being one of them, the Arabic cultures being another. And Fibonacci is famous for using these golden ratios to try and compute how many breeding rabbits you would end up with, depending on the numbers. Now, much later on, of course, that same idea of golden ratios has been applied to the world of finance. But this is not the connection to PZEN. I mean, for one thing, anybody trying to do technical analysis on a crypto asset that's only been in existence for just over 3 months, well, you've got to be crazy. But this is not the connection. You see, Fibonacci was the son of a middle-class, pretty well-off family, and his father was posted to Algiers. And it was whilst he was in Algiers that Fibonacci came across the Arabic numeral system and realized that if he was able to translate the archaic Roman numeral system of doing mathematics to the Arabic way of doing mathematics, he could transform the world of finance. And this is the thing that Fibonacci should be recognized for. You see, his translation in the famous book, the Liber Abaci, was written in such a way as to educate the merchants of the day in a way of doing all sorts of financial calculations, but in particular, interest, and specifically compound interest. That is the connection with Fibonacci. Without Fibonacci's translation of Roman numeral mathematics to Arabic numeral mathematics, we might not have PZEN today. So the publication of the Liber Abaci or Liber Abaci is fundamental to what we now know as the eighth wonder of the world, and that is compounding interest. So if you fast forward to today, I'm going to explain in very simple terms what Warren Buffett himself describes as the ultimate investing strategy, utilizing the eighth wonder of the world, compound interest. Now, all of us here, I'm sure, have an interest in making money. And not just making money, but number one, replacing our income so that we can get rid of that JOB. But in order to do that, it's not just a matter of making money. You need to have yield. More of that to come later. But what I want to discuss with you now is a strategy, if you're in your 20s or in your 30s. It's very interesting to actually look mathematically at what is reality for you today. And the reality is if you're born in the 1980s, after the 1980s, it's highly unlikely that you will be able to afford to retire ever. Look at the numbers here. If you're 30, in order to retire with $1 million in the bank at age 65, you would have to start saving now $270 a month. And the premise here is we've assumed a 9% return to begin with, and around 8.5%, which is the statistical average for traditional finance investment products. So you start now at age 30, you need $270 a month. You need to put that into some kind of traditional finance investment scheme. Time is a very important aspect here, because when we fast forward to age 35, you now need $452 a month saved up every single month. And that's just to reach $1 million at age 65. Now, you might say, well, $1 million clearly isn't enough to retire. And I would highly agree with you. So if you look at retiring with $2 million, if you're age 30 now, you need to be investing $540 a month into some traditional finance investment product. Once you get to age 35, that jumps up to $904 per month. Now, if you've already got money saved up, and if you invested, say, 40 grand at age 30 or 86 grand to get 2 million, at age 35, you need about 80,000 invested as a lump sum to create 1 million in the future, or $157,000 in the bank ready to invest right now as a lump sum in order to return 2 million at age 65. Time and compound interest And this is the best that you can expect with your 401ks. And then on top of that, the most simple investment idea with traditional finance is just to put your money into an index fund, a low fee index fund, and sit there for 35 years. Not very exciting, is it? But let's have a look at PZEN. You see, PZEN has been programmed to grow your funds exponentially. And I'm going to explain in detail now how it actually works, because I'm pretty sure that nobody really understands the power yet. So here is the basic formula. This is what's working behind the scenes when you interact with the code. And I'm going to fast forward a little bit. I'm going to project forward a little bit to show you the possibilities. Now, this is not financial planning. This is not financial advice, because it's not possible to give everybody personal financial advice. I don't know your individual circumstances. So all we can do is lay out the ideas and the possibilities. So for this example, I've assumed that we're going to get out of the doldrums here, out of irons, as they say in the sailing world, and we're going to go back to $80,000 a day in volume, and the price has increased to 0.006. Now, all of these figures are assuming that you've managed to accumulate 1 million PZEN. And if you're able to do that, this is what the numbers will look like, roughly, because none of this can be calculated with any accuracy because it's a moving target. But if we take the average of 450 PZEN a day via the PIF, and the price is 0.006, that means that you're making $2.70 a day, which is $985 a year. Now, if you're going to buy PZEN in the future, it could cost you 0.0048 per PZEN. Look how cheap it is today. But anyway, we're looking into the future, and you've shelled out $4,800 US. Now, when you do the calculation here, when you do the math, that is a pretty nice 20.5% APY just by holding PZEN in your wallet. There is no lockup, there is no staking involved. Look, everybody's circumstances are all different. Nobody can predict the future. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the crypto world tomorrow, let alone 10 or 15 years into the future. But look, just for fun, let's just extrapolate on, and let's just really examine the power of this protocol. When we have a transaction and it adds PZEN to your wallet, that now compounds after every transaction because you now have 1,450 PZEN. So it means that your percentage of the market share went up. Remembering, you get your share proportionally of the PIF depending on the percentage of the total market supply that you hold in your wallet at that time. You started off with 1 million, you now have 1,450,000. So therefore, the percentage of the total market supply went up in your wallet. So it means that on the very next transaction, you are going to get more of that pie. Now, there's even more. It gets even better, as they say, because of the burn function. You see, PZEN is deflationary. Built into the code is a burn function. Now, it's important to realize that the burn function doesn't actually burn coins. What it does is it transfers tokens into a wallet. And there's a pretty distinct advantage in doing that, because that keeps the market cap in play. If we simply got rid of those coins, that wouldn't happen. But every transaction, a burn function kicks in, and that means your market share went up even more. It goes up again. This is the magic of compounding rewards written into the PZEN code. Are you following so far? Give me a Y in the chat. Give me a Y in the chat if you're following so far. Now, just for fun, let's extrapolate going forward. Let's say the price goes back to 0.01, which it has been there. Now every day at about 500 PZEN via the PIF, you're making $5 a day. You bought your PZEN 1 million at $4,800 total. When we do the maths now, that works out to 38% APY. Where have we heard this figure before? But it doesn't stop there, because the numbers just get bigger and bigger and bigger. But just hold that thought right now, and we'll just stick to 38% APY. Because cryptocurrency is the highest appreciating asset class that there is out there, and these numbers prove it. Because if you started your journey in PZEN at age 30 and you invested for 35 years, you wouldn't be coming out with $1 million or 2 million. You'd be coming out with a staggering 377,242.82. That is the power of this protocol. It is absolutely staggering. So, did you follow me through? I hope you did. I will be available for questions at the end of this session, so hold on until we get there and I'll answer all your questions. So, mind blown. Very simple protocol, very simple process, but the power of compounding interest is absolute. It's no wonder that Warren Buffett calls it the eighth wonder of the world. Slanjivar. Now, what are you going to do with this newfound wealth? Well, I know a lot of you are interested in, buying all the toys, the Lamborghinis, the yachts. Oh, by the way, here's a golden ratio you don't want to be involved in. I've been whizzing around trying to get my boat license on an 80-foot yacht. The waves over the past couple of days, in fact, for quite some time actually, have been swells up to 15 feet. And I can tell you, 15 divided by 80 feet is not a golden ratio at all. And if I look tired, that's probably why. I haven't really had a lot of sleep over the past few days, that's for sure. But I would like to show you something now, okay? For those of you who are interested in Lambo. So, pretty nice, eh? Now, here is something very, very interesting. Let me just show you this. If you were to want to buy one of these Lambos, okay, I found a very interesting little thing today, which I'm going to show you. I searched on the internet this morning, well, this afternoon, just before we came online actually, and I found this Lamborghini Gallardo. It's up for sale in a garage in Los Angeles at $128,000 US. It's not a bad little car at all. 2011, low mileage. If you wanted to buy this car today, here's what would happen with traditional finance. You might be able to trade in your existing jalopy and you might get $8,000 US for it. If you've got reasonable credit, they will offer you a finance deal which will give you a monthly payment of around $2,500 US a month for around 60 months. So this beautiful yellow 2011 Lamborghini Gallardo could be sitting in your driveway for a mere $2,500 US a month. Not bad, okay? If you're into Lamborghini Gallardos, that is. However, again, let's illustrate the potential of PZEN and the code behind PZEN. If you are able to buy 500,000 PZEN today, and I'm not sure exactly what the price is, but let's just go with 0.003. That means that you're going to spend $1,500 US, a paltry sum of money to most. And if that seems a very large amount of money for you, then maybe you really shouldn't be here. Because investing is something that involves you having enough money to invest. However, more on that in a minute. So I'm going to suggest that you could spend $1,500 US today and get 500,000 PZEN. Boom, done. If you act now. It's on sale now. Now, looking at the numbers projecting forward, you could be achieving, on average, around 300 PZEN a day through the pay it forward function. Now, get this. This is a possibility. I'm not saying that this is happening. I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm just explaining the possibility of what may happen. If the price of PZEN was to go to 30 cents, which is not beyond the realms of possibility at all, just on that small investment, your 300 PZEN a day is going to garner you $2,737 a month in interest. That means that you can afford this car, plus you can probably afford to put gas in it as well. Again, this is the absolute power of PZEN. This is the compounding interest on steroids. So, I promised you I would explain what and why this whiskey keeps coming up. I told you that I would explain the connection between the Fibonacci golden ratios, which really isn't a connection, but the fact that the merchants in the 12th century were able to work out compound interest. Fast forward to today, and we're harnessing that power on steroids. I also told you that I'd be showing you how to buy a 128,000 Lamborghini for just $1,500 US. And that is the power of the PZEN protocol. That's it for this very quick broadcast today. I'm extremely tired. I've got to go and get some rest. But before I do, I'm going to stick around and answer a few questions if you have any. So now is the time to type in your questions, and I will try and answer as many as I can. So let's see who's managed to join us today. on this glorious holiday day. Let me just scroll back and see. PZEN is that diamond few know about, but soon will rocket. Crypto Freedom says, good morning, Mr. Conrad Zen. How are you? I'm doing extremely well. I hope you are too. Crypto Freedom says, what do you feel about this past week cryptocurrency pump? Valid, or it's going to dump back down to all-time lows again? That was a very interesting question. And of course, if I had a crystal ball, I'd be able to tell you exactly. But I'm not known for my crystal balls. I'm known for my balls of steel. So I will say this. I think the crypto rally that's taken off this week has been mostly to do with macroeconomics. Now, I know this word macroeconomics gets bandied about by all the mainstream media to make them look smart, but it just means what's happening in the wider world. And the one key thing that has happened in the wider world in the past week or so is that China, for the first time probably in its entire communist history, has had to reverse a ruling and a protocol that they've imposed upon the general populace through the power that is communism. And that is they're opening up the economy. Now, that is going to have a huge effect on the global marketplace, because all of a sudden we now have Chinese production coming back online, but more than that, we have Chinese consumption coming back online. And that can only be good for the economies of the world, including the major ones of the United States and the UK. Although I'm not quite sure that UK actually has any financial power. So vis-a-vis, people are more willing to take on risk because they think the situation is going to get better. And of course, the riskier asset base is cryptocurrency. Hence, that's why the money has been flowing in. Now, should we continue to get good news on the inflation side in the United States particularly, it may be that the Fed reverses its decision on raising interest rates. And that will cause an even greater spike in risk on assets vis-a-vis cryptocurrency. Whether that will happen or not remains to be seen. But that's why we've had a blip right now. Because the actual news coming out is really, really bad. There is far more unemployment that's being reported. The house prices are beginning to fade away. Rents are beginning to fade away. But my grocery bill and the amount of money it costs me in gas has yet to show any signs of abating. But it may. And of course, the biggest kicker for this year is going to be what happens in Ukraine. Is this war going to drag on? I think not. And as soon as we get some kind of resolution to the war in Ukraine, well, the gloves come off and we start to see a meteoric rise in cryptocurrency assets as the money will start to pour in. Now, as far as regulation is concerned, as far as what's happened in the crypto market over the past few months, all of that has got nothing to do with decentralized finance. These are the same scams that were perpetrated in traditional finance by the likes of Bernie Madoff and Enron, etc. And what we saw was simply bad governance. Nothing to do with cryptocurrency per se. And we've seen all the dominoes now fall, except for one. And that is the digital currency group headed up by Barry Silvert, DCG. Now, I've explained in detail the whole sequence of events, probably before anybody else published it. I also published the idea that what's going to happen with SPF is playing out. He would plead guilty, which he did. There would be a trial date set, which there will be. And then, as we approach that trial date, an out-of-court settlement will ensue, and we will not hear of Mr. SPF ever again. But the one to watch is Barry Silvert, because he is in a very precarious situation, and it could be that he is the last domino to fall. And if it is, that's a big fall. And we might actually see a dip in cryptocurrency prices, a significant dip. But we don't know how that's going to play out or what white knights are in play. We'll just have to wait and see. Very complex question and no simple, easy answer. Next question. 1S7B1, is this a joke? How is PZEN better than SafeMoon? SafeMoon is a completely different protocol. Go and look at the code. Go and Google SafeMoon. Do your own research and then come back to PZEN and you'll see that there is a world of difference. I think what you're trying to say is that the mechanism of a reflection token is a similar idea. PZEN is not a new idea. What PZEN is, though, is a complete retake on the numbers and on the way that it all works. There are many tokens that do the same thing, but not in the ratios that we have applied. And of course, all the other good stuff that goes with it. Fully audited code, a team that you can trust, a protocol that is going to last forever. And of course, don't forget, anybody who holds PZEN before Pulse Chain comes out, if and when, you will get double your PZEN tokens. Don't forget that little gem. And of course, PZEN was published on Ethereum because Pulse Chain didn't come out. So the original Hector says, I'll be showing this video to my 16-year-old son so he can actually see the magic of compounding interest as per the Lamborghini example. There is another very interesting video on the channel where we describe the fable from the Indian culture of the Sultan of Papalusa when he's playing chess, and the idea of compounding on a chessboard. You can search for that video on the channel. It's pretty interesting. Whiskey Drinker says, hi Conrad, thanks for the simple math example, you're welcome. Conrad, have you invested in chickens on Conrad Island? No, we don't want to encourage wildlife, any more wildlife than there is here already. However, there are plenty of chickens on the mainland. Niall says, Conrad, do you think PZEN could be attacked by the SEC when PZEN gets huge? Well, we'd have to get very huge, wouldn't we, in order for them to take any notice of us. On that very note, it is our view that the likelihood of any legislation being passed this year is the square root of 0. They can't even agree who should be taking charge between the CFTC or the SEC. They simply cannot agree with how to move forward with cryptocurrency, let alone decentralized finance. So the debacle that we've seen last year has simply got them scratching their heads. What is more important is what they're going to do with the central bank digital currency. They are coming. The USA is well along the track now. It is a priority of the Biden administration. And it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out in the future. So as far as regulations and what's going to happen in the future, again, I don't have a crystal ball. But I highly doubt whether there's going to be anything coming down the pipeline that's going to affect decentralized finance, which is what PZEN is. It's 100% DeFi. It's 100% trustless yield. It's self-custodial, which means it's all under your control. There couldn't be a better protocol. In fact, there's only 2 yield protocols that are worth looking at in the DeFi world. And of course, that's Hex and PZEN. The Hex has had a bit of a bashing. It's dropped by 95%, struggling to get up. And there's a lot going on there. But eventually, hopefully, in the future, you may recover somewhat. But of course, PZEN has come along because I, for one, not comfortable in locking up money for 10 to 15 years. Not all of it anyway, that's for sure. Don't forget, anything that I mention on this channel, you can assume that I am invested in. So what more can I say? The PZEN is no staking, there's no lockup, but you still get the trustless yield. And if circumstances change for you, you can just pull it out. Now, I highly recommend that you don't do that and you just try and use the interest that you're generating in order to survive, because the people that make the most money in crypto are the people who get in early and the people who hold the longest. And of course, for those of you who are here watching me right now, you are very lucky because you are so early in this protocol. We're in the doldrums right now, but there's no doubt that the momentum can change overnight. We've seen it in Hex, where we had a whale address came in and bought Hex, double the price in one day, and it never went down in the early days. The place in time where you make the most money in any crypto is when there is low liquidity and it's highly centralized and there's good product market fit. And that's exactly what we have in PZEN. So thank you for your question. So time for one more, and then I'm going to wrap it up today. Dante says, what are your thoughts on Zen? What are you trying to rile me up again? Geez, I don't know. Why don't we have a look at a graph here? I don't know, maybe we can see something. Oh, look, year to date, okay? PZEN up 180%, Bitcoin up, down 13%. ARK from the magnificent Cathy Wood, the darling of Silicon Valley, down 30%. Hex for the year, still down 55%. And for the protocol you've just mentioned, I'm not going to go there, okay? It's crazy. Conrad, I asked above about BlackRock. Didn't quite see your question there. No question about BlackRock, but I guess what you're thinking of is their involvement in Circle, because they are a big investor in Circle. And for those of you who don't know, Circle is the one that has control of USDC. Now, BlackRock have an investment in said company, but it is a small investment. And BlackRock, is, well, we know what BlackRock is. And it is a little bit of a cause for concern. But you need to look deeper into the overall picture of the central bank digital currency. That is the big developing story. And I will be covering that in depth. I've alluded to it all year. At the beginning of last year, January last year, is when I first started talking about CBDCs. CBDCs are coming. There are over 200 countries that are involved in going to launch CBDC. The recent one, of course, was in Nigeria, and we've seen how they have tried to introduce it and get adoption into the general populace, because the government decreed overnight on the launch of the Nigerian CBDC that there was going to be a limit imposed on the amount of fiat currency that you could withdraw from an ATM machine. So the governments are hell-bent on this. The United Nations is hell-bent on this. The World Economic Forum is hell-bent on this. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is hell-bent on this because they are the ones that are funding all of this. And it is coming. We're about 2 years away from a digital currency here in the US. And in United Kingdom, they are actually looking at the possibility of using USDC as the base for a United Kingdom digital currency called Bitcoin. So that's the one that we should be watching. The developments there are what we should be watching. I put out a tweet somewhere just this week, actually, linking to the strategic paper that outlines what it is that everybody is trying to do and has been mandated to be adopted by all countries by 2030. So much more of that to come in the future. And of course, what that is going to do for people is that in order not to use it, you have to have an alternative. There has to be a way of opting out of the rotten system. And PZEN is part of this new networked economy that you control, that you own, that you can become part of today. So I thank you very much for watching. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you found it informative. I've noticed that a lot of people watch my videos and they're not subscribed to the channel. So do me a favor, before you leave, please subscribe to the channel. Please click the bell so you can be notified when I go live. Much more to come from me over the next few months, and much more in the way of promotion for PZEN. You know, there'll be meetups. People are doing certain, kinds of advertising. This protocol is here to stay. It will grow. So I will say this. You're very early. None of us knows what's going to happen. But one is for sure. We are living in a unique time in history where we have the confluence of the extreme limits of divergence between the have and the have-nots, and the technology to close that gap, because there simply is no scarcity of wealth. We just need a better redistribution system. Thank you for watching. Tune in next time. Make sure you follow my Twitter. Make sure you go over to the Telegram group and have a fantastic week. Meanwhile, I'll play you out with this very informative little video. And I will say, Slanjivar, thank you for watching. Thank you to my replay viewers. And for those of you in the United States, again, a very happy holiday. From Conrad Zen, bye for now.
The power of PZEN is in the compounding interest code. Let's look closely at today's numbers on January 4, 2023. If you accumulated 1 million PZEN at $0.03, it would cost about $3,000. Now, using the current average transaction volume, the daily pay it forward code is producing approximately 400 PZEN per 1 million held. So at the current price, you are making about $1.20 a day, or $500 or so a year. That works out to a very nice 16.7% a year, and that is with no staking, no lockup. However, if we allow ourselves to imagine the growth in PZEN, just for fun we could recalculate. Imagine daily volume increases, and we get to a price of 30 cents per PZEN. Now the figures look shockingly different. The daily pay it forward accumulation per 1 million held is now $120 a day, at an average price of 30 cents per PZEN. That generates compounding rewards of about $43,800 a year, which is a staggering 1,460% APY. This is why people are getting excited about this hidden gem. Go see for yourself at PZEN.app.